The breaking point when the Senate said no Commander Elena Vasquez stood at the observation window of the orbital station Terra Prime, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath her. The blue marble that had given birth to humanity looked peaceful from up here, but Elena knew better. Peace was an illusion in this galaxy, especially for newcomers like humans. Behind her, the conference room buzzed with nervous energy. 12 representatives from Earth's United Defense Force sat around a circular table, their faces illuminated by holographic displays showing star charts and fleet movements. They had been arguing for 3 hours now, and Elena was tired of talk. The Galactic Senate had delivered its verdict that morning, and the message was clear as crystal. Humanity would not be permitted to develop advanced defensive weapons. No kinetic accelerators. No mass drivers. No railgun technology. The ancient species who ruled the galaxy had spoken, and their word was supposed to be law. Elena turned from the window and walked back to the table. She was a tall woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, and her uniform bore the insignia of someone who had spent 20 years defending humanity's interests in space. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, swept across the room. "They denied our petition," she said, her voice cutting through the chatter. The room fell silent. "The Senate claims that kinetic weapons are too dangerous, too primitive. They say humanity must use only energy-based defense systems, just like every other species in the galactic community." "That's insane," burst out Captain Rodriguez from his seat. He was young, barely 30, with the kind of fire that Elena remembered having once. "Energy shields can deflect energy weapons. That's basic physics. If we're only allowed to use what everyone else uses, we'll always be at a disadvantage. We're the newest species here. We don't have thousands of years of energy weapon development behind us." "The Senate doesn't care about fairness," said Ambassador Chun, an older woman with silver hair and tired eyes. She had been humanity's voice in the Galactic Senate for 5 years now, and Elena could see how it had worn her down. "They care about maintaining control. Every species that joins the galactic community has to follow the same rules. No exceptions." Elena leaned forward, placing her hands on the table. "Then maybe it's time we stopped asking for permission." The room erupted. Half the people started talking at once, voices rising in alarm and excitement. Elena let them argue for a moment, then raised her hand. Silence fell again. "We have intelligence," she continued, pulling up a new hologram. Red markers appeared across a section of space near Earth's outer colonies. "The Corthian Empire is mobilizing. 3 battle groups, each with 50 warships. They're heading toward the Proxima settlement." Ambassador Chun's face went pale. "Proxima has 2 million colonists, mostly families, scientists, children. The Corthians don't care," Elena said flatly. "They've been eyeing our colonies for months. They know the Senate won't intervene in what they call internal territorial disputes. And they know our energy-based defense fleet can't stand against their experienced forces." Captain Rodriguez slammed his fist on the table. "So what do? We can't just abandon those people." "We don't," Elena said. She pulled up another hologram, this one showing technical schematics that made several people lean forward in interest. 6 months ago, before we even knew about the Senate's restrictions, our research division was working on something. Project Thunderstrike. A weapon system based on old Earth military technology but scaled up for space warfare. Dr. James Morrison, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke. He was a thin man with wild gray hair and glasses that constantly slipped down his nose. He had been one of Earth's leading physicists before humanity joined the galactic community, and he looked uncomfortable in his formal clothes. "A railgun," he said simply. "An electromagnetic mass accelerator capable of launching a projectile at a significant fraction of light speed. The kinetic energy would be enormous, devastating. That's exactly what the Senate forbids, Ambassador Chon protested. If we build something like that, we'll be expelled from the galactic community. Maybe worse. The enforcement fleet could quarantine Earth entirely. Elena met her eyes. And if we don't build it, the Corthians will enslave or kill 2 million humans. Then they'll move on to the next colony, and the next, until Earth itself is surrounded and alone. The room fell into heavy silence. Everyone understood the impossible choice they faced. Follow the rules and watch humanity be destroyed piece by piece, or break the rules and risk everything. The decision that changed everything. Ambassador Chun closed her eyes for a long moment. When she opened them again, Elena saw something new there. Not resignation, but resolve. How long would it take to build? Chun asked quietly. Dr. Morrison pushed his glasses up. The weapon itself? We have most of the theory worked out. The engineering challenges are significant, but not impossible. The real problem is power. A railgun capable of threatening a battleship would need an enormous energy source, more than any ship in our current fleet can generate. What about the Prometheus? Asked General Zhao, speaking for the first time. He was the oldest person in the room, a veteran of Earth's last major conflict before first contact. The new dreadnought that's still in construction? Morrison nodded slowly. The Prometheus has 6 fusion reactors. If we redesigned the power distribution systems and added capacitor arrays, it might work. Might. But we'd be building something that's never been tested at this scale. One mistake, and the whole ship could tear itself apart. Or we could save 2 million people, Elena said. That's the trade we're looking at. Certain risk versus certain death for our colonists. Captain Rodriguez spoke up again. How long, Doctor? Give us a number. Morrison looked at his tablet, fingers flying across calculations. 40 days. Maybe less if we work around the clock and strip resources from other projects. But that's assuming we start immediately and that nothing goes wrong. The Corthian fleet will reach Proxima in 60 days, Elena said. That gives us 20 days to get the Prometheus to the combat zone and prepare for battle. Ambassador Chun stood up, her decision made. I'll take this to the World Council. They'll have to authorize it. But Elena, I need you to understand something. If we do this, if we build this weapon and use it, there's no going back. The Galactic Senate will know. The other species will know. Everything changes. Elena nodded. Everything is already changing, Ambassador. We're just deciding whether we change it on our terms or theirs. Asterisk, the race against time begins 3 hours later. Elena stood in the construction bay where the Prometheus was taking shape. The massive ship stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull gleaming with fresh alloy plating. Construction crews swarmed over it like ants, welding and wiring and installing the thousands of systems that would bring the vessel to life. Dr. Morrison stood beside her, looking up at the ship with a mixture of awe and terror. We're really doing this, he said softly. We're really doing this, Elena confirmed. She pulled up her command tablet and began issuing orders. I need your best engineers, Doctor. Everyone who worked on the Thunderstrike project. Pull them from wherever they are and get them here. Morrison nodded and started making calls. Within minutes, people began arriving. Engineers, physicists, weapons specialists. They came from universities and military installations, from private companies and government laboratories. All of them knew what they were being asked to do, and all of them came anyway. Elena gathered them in the construction bay's main conference room. 53 people, the best and brightest that Earth had to offer. She looked at their faces and saw fear there, but also determination. You all know why you're here, she began. For the past 6 months, the Galactic Senate has been telling us how to defend ourselves. They've restricted our technology, limited our weapons, forced us to fight by their rules. And now people are going to die because of it. She pulled up the hologram of Proxima Colony. Images flashed by showing families, children playing in domed habitats, scientists working in laboratories. Real people with real lives? These are our people, Elena continued. And in 60 days, the Korthian Empire is going to try to take them. We could beg the Senate for help. We could file diplomatic protests and appeal to galactic law. Or we could build something that makes the Korthians think twice about attacking humans ever again. Dr. Morrison stepped forward and activated a new hologram. The Railgun schematic appeared, rotating slowly in the air. It was beautiful in its simplicity, just 2 parallel rails and a projectile, but scaled up to devastating proportions. "This is Project Thunderstrike," Morrison said. "An electromagnetic accelerator mounted along the spine of the Prometheus. It will fire a solid tungsten slug weighing 800 kilograms at 0.2 light speed. The kinetic energy at impact will be equivalent to multiple nuclear weapons, but focused into a single point." Someone in the back raised their hand. "Won't the recoil destroy the ship?" "That's what we're here to prevent," Morrison replied. "We need to design shock absorption systems, structural reinforcements, and power regulation that can handle the stress. We have 40 days to solve problems that would normally take years. But I've looked at every person in this room. I've seen your work. If anyone can do this, it's us." Elena let his words sink in, then added her own. "The Senate will call this primitive. They'll say we're bringing savage weapons to a civilized galaxy. But here's the truth. Physics doesn't care about civilization. Mass times velocity equals force. That's not primitive. That's fundamental. And if the galaxy's ancient species have forgotten that, then maybe it's time humanity reminded them." She looked around the room one more time. "This won't be easy. We'll be working with no sleep and no breaks. Some of you might not survive if something goes wrong. But 2 million people are counting on us. Not because they know we exist, but because we're the only chance they have. So let me ask you now, are you with me?" The response was unanimous. 53 voices saying yes. 53 people ready to break every rule the galaxy had set for them. Elena felt something shift in that moment, felt the weight of what they were about to attempt settle onto her shoulders. "Then let's get to work," she said. "We have a weapon to build and a war to win." As the team scattered to their stations and the construction bay erupted into organized chaos, Elena returned to the observation window. She looked out at Earth, at the blue planet that had given birth to a species stubborn enough to challenge gods. The Galactic Senate thought they had tamed humanity, thought they had forced Earth into their ancient patterns of warfare and control. But they had forgotten something important about humans. Throughout their history, whenever someone told them something was impossible, they took it as a challenge, a railgun powerful enough to threaten the galaxy's established powers. A weapon that broke every rule the Senate held sacred. 40 days to build it, 20 days to deploy it, and one chance to prove that humanity would not bow to anyone. Elena smiled grimly at her reflection in the window. The Korthians were coming, expecting an easy victory over a weak and restricted species. Instead, they were about to learn a lesson that would echo across the stars. Humanity had entered the galaxy quietly, politely following every rule they were given. But that time was ending. The first human railgun was about to fire, and after it did, nothing would ever be the same. The countdown had begun. Asterisk, when impossible became reality, the construction bay never slept. For 37 days straight, the lights of Terra Prime burned bright as humanity worked on its forbidden weapon. Dr. James Morrison had not left the station in that entire time, surviving on coffee and determination. His team of engineers worked in shifts, but Morrison himself seemed to exist in all places at once. Checking calculations, approving modifications, solving problems that arose faster than anyone could count. Commander Elena Vasquez watched from the command center as the Prometheus transformed. The sleek dreadnought that was supposed to be humanity's pride in conventional warfare was becoming something else entirely. Something dangerous. The railgun stretched along the ship's entire spine now. Two parallel electromagnetic rails that glowed with a faint blue light when powered. Massive capacitor banks lined the interior corridors, able to store enough energy to light up a small city. The fusion reactors had been modified and pushed beyond their design specifications, generating power levels that made the engineering teams nervous. "We're ready for the first test," Morrison announced, appearing at Alana's side. He looked exhausted, with dark circles under his eyes, and his hair even wilder than usual. But there was also excitement there, the kind that came from seeing theory become reality. "How confident are you?" Elena asked. Morrison pushed his glasses up and considered the question carefully. "Confident enough to be here when we fire it. Not confident enough to guarantee we won't blow ourselves up." Elena had to smile at his honesty. "That's the most reassuring thing anyone said to me in weeks." They had moved the Prometheus to a testing range far from Earth, far from anything valuable. If the ship disintegrated when they fired the railgun, at least it would only take the test crew with it. 300 volunteers had stayed aboard, knowing the risks and choosing to face them anyway. Elena opened a comm channel to the bridge. "Captain Rodriguez, status report." Rodriguez's voice came back immediately. "All systems green, Commander. Capacitors charged to full. Targeting solution locked on the test asteroid. We're ready when you are." The test target was a rock 3 kilometers across, drifting in empty space. It had taken 2 days to position it correctly, and now it sat there waiting. Completely unaware, it was about to become part of history. "Dr. Morrison," Elena said formally, "you have permission to fire when ready." Morrison nodded and activated his comlink to the weapons control station. "This is Chief Engineer Morrison. Initiate firing sequence. All hands brace for impact in 30 seconds." Elena gripped the railing in front of her console and watched the countdown. Timer appear on every screen in the command center. Around the station, thousands of people stopped what they were doing to watch. Some prayed. Others held their breath. Everyone understood that the next 30 seconds would determine whether Project Thunderstrike was genius or suicide. The shot that shook the galaxy. The countdown reached 0 for a split second. Nothing happened. Then the Prometheus lit up like a newborn star. Every light on the ship blazed as the fusion reactors dumped their full output into the capacitor banks. The electromagnetic rails activated, creating a magnetic field so powerful it interfered with sensors across the entire test range. The tungsten projectile, 800 kilograms of dense metal shaped into an aerodynamic dart, sat between the rails. As the magnetic field intensified, it began to move. Slowly at first, then faster, then impossibly fast. The projectile accelerated along the 2-kilometer length of the ship in less than 1/100th of a second. When it left the barrel, it was moving at 0.2 light speed, 60,000 kilometers per second. The vacuum of space offered no resistance as the slug crossed the distance to the asteroid in less than 2 heartbeats. The impact was silent in the void of space, but the visual was spectacular. The asteroid didn't shatter or explode. It simply ceased to exist. The kinetic energy released was so enormous that matter converted directly to plasma. A brief sun bloomed in the darkness, bright enough to be seen from Earth with the naked eye. When the light faded, there was nothing left but an expanding cloud of vapor where the asteroid had been. The command center erupted in cheers. People hugged each other, shouted, cried with relief and joy. They had done it. They had built a weapon that could make gods reconsider their choices. But Elena wasn't celebrating yet. She was watching the Prometheus's status readouts, checking for damage, for structural failures, for any sign that the ship had been harmed by the tremendous forces involved. Asterisk engineering report, she demanded. Morrison was already reviewing the data, his fingers flying across his tablet. Minor stress fractures in the forward hull, within acceptable parameters. Capacitor banks performed perfectly. Reactor output stable. Shock absorption systems worked better than calculated. He looked up, and for the first time in weeks, he was smiling. Commander, the Prometheus survived. The weapon works. It actually works. Elena allowed herself a moment of relief, then switched her focus to what came next. How long until we can fire again? The capacitors need 40 minutes to fully recharge from the reactors. We could do it faster in an emergency, but we risk damage to the power systems. For sustained combat, I'd recommend one shot every 30 to 40 minutes. One shot, Elena mused. That's all we get. One chance to change everything. Asterisk Captain Rodriguez's voice came through the cone. Commander, we're receiving an emergency transmission from Earth. Priority Alpha. Elena's blood went cold. Priority Alpha meant only one thing. Put it through. The holographic display flickered, and Ambassador Chun appeared. She looked grim. Commander Vasquez, the Corthian fleet has accelerated their timeline. They're not going to Proxima anymore. They're coming to Earth. The celebration in the command center died instantly. How long? Elena asked. 8 days. Maybe less. They know we've been building something. The Senate must have leaked information to them. The Corthians are treating this as an existential threat. They're bringing everything they have. 150 warships, Commander. They mean to end humanity before we can become a problem. Chun's laugh was bitter. The Senate has declared this a legal action. They're calling it enforcement of galactic law. If we've built a prohibited weapon, the Corthians have the right to eliminate the threat. So we're on our own, Elena said. We've always been on our own, Chun replied. But Commander, the World Council has made a decision. We're not surrendering. We're not begging for mercy. If the Corthians want to fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget. Bring the Prometheus home. It's time to show the galaxy what humans can do. The Battle of Earth 6 days later, the Corthian armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 150 warships, the largest force ever assembled against a single planet in modern galactic history. Their hulls gleamed with energy shields. Their weapons bristled with the power to burn worlds. At the head of the fleet flew the Corthian Emperor's personal flagship, the Eternal Dominion. It was a vessel 5 kilometers long, more battle station than ship, equipped with enough firepower to reduce Earth's defenses to ash. Admiral Theron Korth stood on his command deck and looked at the blue planet ahead with satisfaction. Humanity had dared to challenge the natural order. They had built a weapon that threatened everything the Galactic Senate stood for. Now they would pay the price for their arrogance. Open a channel to Earth, he ordered. Let them hear their fate. On Terra Prime, Elena received the transmission and played it for everyone to hear. Admiral Korth's voice was smooth and confident, the voice of someone who had never lost a battle. People of Earth, I am Admiral Theron Korth of the Corthian Empire. You have violated galactic law by constructing a prohibited kinetic weapon. The Galactic Senate has authorized your punishment. Surrender your vessels, hand over all individuals involved in this project, and accept Corthian governance of your world. Do this, and most of your population will be allowed to live. Refuse, and we will reduce your planet to cinders. You have 1 hour to decide. Elena didn't need an hour. She opened a return channel, making sure her face was visible. making sure Admiral Korth could see she wasn't afraid. Admiral Korth. This is Commander Elena Vasquez of the United Earth Defense Force. I have a message for you and for everyone watching in the Galactic Senate. Humanity doesn't surrender. We don't bow. We don't beg. You want to punish us for building a weapon? Then come and try. But know this. We're going to teach you something your species forgot a long time ago. Physics doesn't care about your laws. Mass times velocity equals force. And you're about to learn exactly what that means. She cut the channel before he could respond. Around Earth, the defense fleet activated. 30 human warships, every vessel humanity could spare, formed a defensive sphere around the planet. They were outnumbered 5-1, using energy weapons that the Korthians had been perfecting for millennia. By every logical calculation, they should have been destroyed in minutes. But at the center of the formation, the Prometheus waited. Its railgun charged, its crew ready, its captain determined to make every shot count. Admiral Korth watched the human formation and laughed. They're going to fight. How noble. How stupid. All ships, advance. Weapons free. Show them what happens to species who forget their place. The Korthian fleet surged forward. A wave of destruction moving toward Earth. Energy weapons began to fire. Lances of plasma and particle beams crossing the void. Human shields flared as they absorbed the impacts. Energy meeting energy in the traditional way of galactic warfare. The battle was going exactly as Admiral Korth expected. Human ships were taking damage, falling back, their shields failing under the sustained assault. In 10 minutes, maybe 15, the defense would collapse. Then Earth itself would burn. But Elena wasn't fighting the battle Admiral Korth expected. Captain Rodriguez, she transmitted to the Prometheus. You have a firing solution on the Eternal Dominion? Locked and confirmed, Rodriguez replied. Range is optimal. Capacitors at maximum charge. Ready to fire on your command. Elena took a breath. Everything came down to this moment. One shot. One chance to change the galaxy forever. Fire, she ordered. The Lords learned to bow. The Prometheus's railgun fired for the second time in its short existence. The tungsten projectile left the barrel at 0.2 light speed, crossing 300,000 kilometers in less than 2 seconds. It was invisible to the naked eye, moving too fast for conventional sensors to track. Admiral Korth had exactly 1.5 seconds to realize something was wrong. His tactical officer shouted a warning about an unknown projectile inbound. But there was no time to react, no time to dodge, no time to do anything but watch. The projectile hit the Eternal Dominion's forward shield at 60,000 kilometers per second. Energy shields were designed to disperse plasma, deflect particle beams, absorb directed energy. They worked by spreading incoming force across the entire field surface, making them incredibly effective against traditional weapons. But they were not designed for solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The shield tried to stop the projectile. For a microsecond, it even succeeded, the magnetic field grabbing at the tungsten dart and attempting to slow it down. But the kinetic energy was too immense, too concentrated. The shield overloaded instantly, collapsing like paper in a hurricane. The projectile continued into the Eternal Dominion's hull. 5 kilometers of advanced armor, multiple layers of ablative plating, structural reinforcement designed to withstand any known weapon. All of it meant nothing. The tungsten dart passed through the flagship like it wasn't there, the friction converting metal to plasma, releasing energy that tore through deck after deck after deck. The ship had time to begin breaking apart. Then the secondary explosions started as reactors lost containment and weapon systems detonated. The Eternal Dominion, pride of the Korthian Empire, flagship of Admiral Theron Korth, ceased to be a ship and became an expanding fireball visible across half the solar system. The entire Korthian fleet stopped moving. 149 warships froze in space, their commanders unable to process what they had just witnessed. Their flagship, their most powerful vessel, with shields that could withstand hours of conventional bombardment, had been destroyed in a single shot dot by a primitive kinetic weapon, by a species that had joined the galaxy less than 5 years ago. On Earth, every screen showed the same image: the fireball where the eternal dominion had been. And in every capital, every military installation, every home where people had been watching their possible extinction, the same thought occurred. We won, against impossible odds, against the galaxy's ancient empires. Humanity had struck back and drawn blood. Elena didn't celebrate. She opened a channel to the remaining Corthian fleet. "This is Commander Elena Vasquez. Your admiral is dead. Your flagship is destroyed. You can continue this fight and die like he did, or you can leave now and tell the galaxy what happened here. Tell them that humanity will not be controlled. Tell them we built one railgun in 40 days. Imagine what we'll build in a year, in 10 years. Tell your Senate. Tell your emperors. Tell everyone who thinks they can threaten Earth. We don't bow. We don't surrender. And we remember everyone who tries to make us." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the Corthian ships began to turn away. They activated their faster-than-light drives and fled, leaving the debris of their flagships spinning in the void. Humanity had won its first major battle. But more than that, they had announced their presence to the galaxy in a way no one could ignore. A new order 2 weeks later, Elena stood before the Galactic Senate. The ancient chamber was filled with representatives from 800 worlds, species that had ruled space for millennia. They looked at her with a mixture of fear, anger, and grudging respect. The lead senator, an energy being that called itself Archvoice, spoke with tones like distant thunder. "Commander Vasquez, you have violated the Edict of Limitation. You have built and deployed a weapon of mass destruction. The penalty for such actions is typically expulsion or elimination." Elena stood straight, her uniform crisp, her expression calm. "Then eliminate us. But know that Earth has already built 3 more railguns. In 6 months, we'll have 10. In a year, every human warship will carry kinetic weapons. You can try to stop us, but you'll have to destroy us completely. And I promise you, we'll take a lot of you with us." The chamber erupted in shouted protests and angry declarations. But Archvoice raised a glowing appendage and silence fell. "Or," the senator said slowly, "we could acknowledge reality. The edict was written to prevent war, not to maintain our control. Perhaps it is time to update our laws to reflect new circumstances." Elena felt her heart race. This was the moment everything changed. "Humanity has proven it will defend itself regardless of our approval," Archvoice continued. "They have also proven their weapons are devastatingly effective. We can either accept them as equals, with rights to develop their own technology, or we can fight a war we cannot win without destroying ourselves in the process. I call for a vote. Shall we amend the edict to allow kinetic weapons under specific regulations?" The vote took hours. Species argued and debated and threatened. But in the end, reality won over tradition. The Edict of Limitation was amended for the first time in 100,000 years. Humanity would be allowed to keep its railguns. In exchange, they would share the technology with other species who wanted it, breaking the energy weapon monopoly that ancient empires had used to control the galaxy for eons. Elena returned to Earth a hero. But she knew the truth. The battle wasn't over. It was just beginning. Humanity had forced the galaxy to acknowledge them, but that meant they were now players in a game that had been going on since before Earth existed. Other species would build railguns now. The military balance would shift. New conflicts would arise. The galaxy would never be the same, but that was fine. Humanity hadn't come to space looking for peace. They came looking for a chance to stand on their own terms. And they had earned that chance with physics, engineering, and the stubborn refusal to bow to anyone but Dr. Morrison found Elena at the observation window of Terra Prime a month later, watching construction crews begin work on the next generation of Railgun-equipped ships. "Do you think we did the right thing?" he asked quietly. Elena considered the question. She thought about the Corthian dead, about the power they had unleashed, about all the ways this could go wrong. "I think we did the only thing we could," she finally answered. "We refused to be victims. We built something the galaxy said was impossible. And when they came to punish us for it, we showed them why humans have survived everything Earth ever threw at us. We adapt, we innovate, we fight, and the galaxy will never underestimate us again," Morrison added. Elena smiled. "No, they won't." The first human railgun fired, and the Lords of the Galaxy learned they weren't untouchable anymore. Whatever happens next, we face it as equals. Below them, Earth turned in its eternal rotation, the blue planet that had spawned a species stubborn enough to challenge gods. And around it, construction continued on weapons that would make sure no one ever threatened humanity's home again. The countdown to the next chapter of human history had already begun. Asterisk.